Everyone told me the HOA was strict, but nothing prepared me for the morning. I opened my mailbox and found a bright red notice screaming that I owed $300 a day. Not a week, not a month, every single day. And the reason? According to HOA President Karen Whitmore, my garden hose was visible from the street. A violation so ridiculous I thought it had to be a prank. But this was only the opening shot in a war Karen never expected to lose. I tried to talk to her. I knocked on her door, hoping it was a simple misunderstanding. Instead, she swung it open like I'd interrupted a royal ceremony. Karen lectured me about community standards, waving a binder thick enough to stop a truck. She claimed I had ignored previous warnings I had never received. When I asked to see proof, she snapped that the fines would continue until I learned respect for authority. That word, authority, told me everything I needed to know. But the more she pushed, the more I sensed something off. Karen was too aggressive, too obsessed with squeezing money out of me. Neighbors whispered that she used HOA funds like her personal wallet, though no one could prove it. She bragged about upgrades to her garage, yet no one ever saw her car inside. Something about her behavior made the hair on my neck stand up. I felt like she was hiding more than just petty rules. The turning point came when I visited the HOA office to dispute the fines. The treasurer, an older man with tired eyes, pulled me aside and quietly admitted the books weren't adding up. Fees were missing. Receipts were forged. And every irregularity pointed directly at Karen's signature. He told me he was too scared to take it to the authorities, but he urged me to document everything. That was the moment. I realized this wasn't about a hose. It was about uncovering a thief. So I gathered emails, took photos, saved every notice Karen shoved into my mailbox. I even installed a camera facing her nightly strolls through the neighborhood, clipboard in hand. What I captured shocked me. Karen slipping into garages that weren't hers, leaving with envelopes. I brought everything to the police. They didn't just listen, they acted. And the raid that followed shattered every illusion our community had about its self-appointed queen. When the cops moved in, the entire street froze. Flashing lights reflected off windows as officers marched toward Karen's garage with a warrant in hand. She stormed outside screaming about HOA immunity and abuse of power, but no one believed her. When the garage door lifted, gasps echoed. Boxes stacked to the ceiling, stuffed with HOA cash, stolen checks, and member payments she had marked as delinquent. In that moment, every fine, threat, and arrogant lecture made sense. Karen wasn't enforcing rules. She was financing her own empire. Karen's arrest should have ended everything. But for me, it was only the beginning. The morning after the raid, the neighborhood group chat exploded. People were furious, embarrassed, shocked, some even terrified. Turns out, I wasn't the only one she targeted with ridiculous fines. One neighbor had been charged $150 a day for having overly enthusiastic holiday lights. Another was fined $200 for improperly cheerful lawn decor. But no one had questioned her authority. She ruled through fear, intimidation, and threats of lawsuits. As officers cataloged the mountain of stolen HOA cash from her garage, they found something even worse, a handwritten ledger where Karen kept track of easy targets. My name was at the top. Next to it was a note in red ink. Push hard. He'll fold. That one sentence made my blood boil. She had never intended to enforce rules. She had planned to bleed me dry. And apparently, she'd been doing it to half the neighborhood for years. Later that afternoon, Detective Ramos pulled me aside. He explained that while the evidence against Karen was overwhelming, the HOA still had to undergo a full financial audit to understand the true extent of her theft. He warned me that things might get messy before they got better. Fees reversed, accounts frozen, emergency elections triggered. The neighborhood was about to go through chaos, and somehow I had become the unintended center of it all. When word spread that I was the one who had provided the footage and documents that exposed Karen, the responses were mixed. Many neighbors thanked me. Some even hugged me in the street. But others, mostly Karen's loyal inner circle, glared at me as if I had ruined their perfect little kingdom. They claimed I destroyed the community and embarrassed the HOA publicly. One even muttered that Karen was set up, it didn't matter, that the evidence was literally piled to the garage ceiling. They needed someone to blame, and I was the convenient target. That evening, while I sat on my porch trying to process everything, the treasurer approached me again. He looked relieved, like a man freed from years of pressure. He admitted that Karen had bullied the board into silence, threatened to report them for fabricated violations, and even used HOA money to pay for her personal attorney. He apologized for not speaking up sooner. I didn't blame him. Karen had weaponized fear like an art form. But the real twist came when he told me something that shook me to my core. Karen wasn't acting alone. The audit team found irregularities that suggested she had a partner. Someone still inside the HOA leadership. Someone still calling shots. Someone watching. And they suspected this person wasn't thrilled that I had helped bring Karen down. I didn't sleep that night. The idea that someone else inside the HOA leadership had been helping. Karen's steel made every shadow feel heavier. Every sound outside my window sharper. If Karen had a partner, that meant the nightmare wasn't over. It meant someone still had access to everyone's personal information. Payment history and addresses, including mine. And if they knew I was the one who exposed her, there was no telling what they might do next. The following morning, the HOA held an emergency meeting at the community center. The place was packed, angry neighbors, confused homeowners, board members trying to look composed, despite sweating through their shirts. I sat in the back, not wanting to draw attention, but that didn't matter. The moment I walked in, whispers spread like wildfire. When the interim chair finally called the meeting to order, the atmosphere was suffocating. The auditor stepped up with a stack of documents and revealed the preliminary findings. At least $87,000 in dues and fines are unaccounted for, he said. Gasps rippled through the room. And we have reason to believe multiple accounts were intentionally altered. He paused. This was not the work of one person. The room erupted. People shouted, fingers pointed. A couple of board members walked out, through the chaos. I caught the treasurer glancing nervously at one of the vice presidents, a man named Douglas Reed. He was tall, polished, always overly eager to defend Karen at meetings. He'd once called her the backbone of the HOA. Now he sat stiffly, jaw tight, eyes darting between the exits. Then it happened. Out of nowhere, Douglas stood up and slammed his hand on the table. We wouldn't be in this mess if certain people hadn't interfered, he snapped, glaring directly at me. The room fell silent. I felt every head turn my way. My heart hammered, but I didn't move. He continued, voice trembling with anger. Everything was fine until he started recording people and sending things to the police. The treasurer immediately challenged him, demanding to know why Douglas was so defensive. Instead of answering, Douglas grabbed his briefcase and stormed out of the meeting. But here's the thing, he didn't go home. A neighbor followed him outside and saw him head straight toward the HOA office. The same office the police had sealed for audit access. Within minutes, I got a message from Detective Ramos. Stay inside your house. We need to talk. My stomach dropped. The detective arrived half an hour later with news that left me frozen. The office door had been forced open. Files were missing. The safe had been emptied. And Douglas's fingerprints were everywhere. Karen wasn't the only thief. Her partner was now active, desperate, and on the run. The final showdown began the next morning. By sunrise, the neighborhood felt tense, almost like the calm before a storm. Police cars lined the streets, flashing red and blue lights off every window. Detectives, officers, and forensic teams swarmed, turning our quiet suburb into a controlled chaos zone. Douglas had been spotted entering the woods near the HOA office. It was only a matter of time before they confronted him. Detective Ramos briefed me before heading out. Stay back. Keep yourself safe. We've got units surrounding him from every angle. This ends today. I nodded, heart pounding as I watched from my porch. For weeks I'd been caught in a twisted HOA nightmare, constantly threatened by fines, intimidation, and now, real danger. It felt surreal that it all started with a garden hose and $300 a day fines. Yet here I was, front row to the unraveling of the entire criminal scheme. Minutes passed like hours. Then, in the distance, we saw Douglas emerge from the woods. He was frantic, holding a briefcase tight to his chest. Officers shouted commands, but he ran, zigzagging, desperate. A few neighbors gasped, unsure if he was fleeing for freedom or preparing for something more violent. Detectives quickly deployed a spike strip, forcing his car to slow and skid into a ditch. Douglas jumped out, sprinting toward the dense trees on the other side of the street. That's when the police moved in, surrounding him. Douglas tried to bluff, holding the briefcase like a shield, but officers advanced carefully, shouting warnings, guns trained, tactical formations tight. Suddenly, the briefcase clattered to the ground. Inside, they discovered more forged HOA records, stacks of cash, and even a small safe with Karen's signature on it, proof that she and Douglas had been partners in crime all along. Douglas dropped to his knees, hands raised, realizing the game was over. Officers cuffed him swiftly, reading his rights. Relief swept over me. This nightmare was finally ending. The neighborhood slowly returned to normal, though the scars remained. Karen faced charges for theft and fraud, Douglas for conspiracy, tampering, and intimidation. HOA fines were reversed, funds returned, and an emergency election installed honest leadership. I was no longer just a victim of petty HOA tyranny. I had helped expose an organized scheme that threatened our entire community. Neighbors thanked me, some with hugs, some with handwritten notes. The treasurer admitted publicly that I had saved the HOA from further corruption. Even those who initially doubted me now apologized for their mistrust. And me? I finally felt safe walking past Karen's empty house, past Douglas's abandoned office, knowing that justice, not fear, was in control. This experience taught me a lot. Sometimes the rules aren't the real problem. It's the people who abuse them. And standing up, documenting evidence, and staying calm under pressure can make all the difference between being victimized and taking control. As for Karen and Douglas, they won't be harming anyone again. And me? I finally reclaimed my home, my peace, and my sanity.